And we're live.
And are we live or is it Memorex? Hang on, let's just go over here. You know, this whole camera setup thing. There you go. I'm telling you guys. Ericka, I am so happy.
Yeah.
It's not usual I start a show this happy.
Okay.
I just found out that Rosie O'Donnell self-deported to Ireland. So
Wait, Rosie O'Donnell is still a thing? Sorry.
Well, he's self-deported to Ireland. I mean, look, you can say Trump hasn't done this or he's done that, but I would judge that his presidency is already a success if Rosie O'Donnell self-deported to Ireland. I mean, does it get better than that?
No. I would like it if Meghan Markle self-deported to Ireland.
No, she'd have to go to England.
I want her to stop showing up in my feed.
They probably wouldn't let her in, so she might have to go to Ireland, maybe Scotland.
I don't know how you can give up your royal whatever and be like, I don't want you anymore, but you need to call me the Duchess of Sussex. Like, bro, you're in or you're out. Okay, you pick.
So it's a good day in America. Let's roll them because, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest. Rabbi Allouche, Pinchas Allouche, is here to talk about the rise, not only in Israel, but the anti-Semitism here and the backdrop of the religious war in this country, if not the world.
Yes.
Let's roll them. Hello, and welcome to Of the People. Take off the masks. That's right. Time to take off the masks. You march, you chant, you hold your signs high, your fists are clenched, and your voices are raised. And you say you're fighting for something: justice, freedom, and change. But when I look at all of you in masks, all I see are masks. Black masks, red masks, skulls, scarves, hiding your faces and concealing who you are. So I have to ask, if you truly believe in what you're standing for, why are you hiding? If your cause is just, if your convictions are strong, why cower behind a piece of cloth like a thief in the night? You see, real courage isn't found in the anonymity of the crowd. Real courage isn't setting fires, breaking windows, and disappearing into darkness. Real courage, real manhood, is standing up, showing your face and saying, this is who I am. This is what I believe in. And the great movements of history weren't led by cowards in disguise. Martin Luther King Jr. did not hide behind a mask. He stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and let the world see his face and hear his voice. And the founding fathers didn't wear disguise either when they signed their names to the Declaration of Independence. And they risked everything. They risked it openly, boldly, because they knew what they stood for. But all of you in masks, you skulk around in the shadows. You call yourselves warriors, but you refuse to be seen. And you demand change, but you're too afraid to put your name, your face, and your reputation on the line. So if you really mean what you say, if your cause is so righteous and so just, then take off the mask. Look America in the eye and declare your beliefs without fear, because otherwise you're just another coward playing pretend, a phantom of the night who vanishes when the sun comes up. Look, history remembers those who stood with their faces uncovered, who bore the weight of their convictions without fear. But you, all of you in mask, you're nothing but a spineless coward. A gutless fraud who hides behind a mask like a rat that scurries into the dark. You scream for justice, but you lack the backbone to stand in the light. And you pretend to be a warrior, which I find offensive. Because real warriors don't cower behind fabric. They own their fight. They take responsibility for their actions. You want to destroy, to intimidate, and to tear down what others have built. But you don't even have the balls to show your face while you're doing it. It's pathetic. If you can't take off the mask and stand by your beliefs like a man, then you're not a protester. You're not a fighter. You're just a faceless coward, a disgrace to everything that this country stands for. And that's the monologue.
That was heavy and true. Bunch of little baby sissy people.
Well, the fight is engaged. And if we
Yeah.
don't acknowledge, so Hillel Fold, who has also been a friend of the show, basically says that there is a war going on of ideology. And if American Israel doesn't acknowledge that, then we're losing the battle. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you a very special guest and a heart connection of mine, Rabbi Pinchas Allouche from Scottsdale, Arizona, a huge part of Israel Appreciation Day, our spiritual rudder, Rabbi Allouche. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you of the people.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure being with you, both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, everyone always likes Ericka better. That's okay.
I was going to say a little more with Ericka, but with you too, Robert. It's great to be
I'm an acquired taste. What can I tell you? It's just one of those
No,
things.
that's not true. I love it. I love it.
So I want to start, so Rabbi, you have been so vocal and so outspoken in defense of Israel and the rising anti-Semitism here, but I want to start with something a little different. I referenced Hillel Fold, who are friends of both of ours, that basically said that, it's a war of ideologies that's going on. It's not just about anti-Semitism. And I know you've spoken to that. But my question is this. Is there a fundamental incompatibility of values between Islam and Judeo-Christian values upon which the West was founded?
Good question.
It's a great question. There are some fundamental differences, but I do think that there are also many common points. In fact, if you look at history, Jews and Muslims got along for many centuries. And I think that we got along because we do have some common values, like the belief in one God, like the many prayers we have per day. Muslims have 5, we have 3. Even some of the food is very much alike. So we do have many commonalities, but there are fundamental differences, especially with sects of Islam that have not only become extreme, have become, I would say, insane and maybe even dangerous.
And that makes sense.
That.
I'm glad that you talked about the common overlap and obviously the common ancestry from the offspring of Abraham, right? So, I mean, obviously there's a common lineage as well. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is there is a Gallup poll out that maybe you've seen, and it's recent, I think it was last week, that basically says that support for Israel in this country is for the first time below 50%. And the problem with that is not just the numbers, is that it's trending in that direction. And support for the Palestinians or Hamas or our two-state solution, while it's only 35%, give or take, is also an all-time high. How did we get here? Right? I mean, how did we get to this place in America? I mean, Israel is a related conversation, but slightly different, which I want to get to in a second. But how did America get to this place?
Well, I have my own theories. First and foremost, I think it's because of complete lack of education, of ignorance. People today get their news from TikTok and Instagram, and they don't really rely on facts and on truth. So that certainly is a big factor. But I would go even deeper, and I would say that it is also reflective of the godless society that we live in. Because when we live in a society that is God-centered, that is God-anchored, then we must follow also the word of God and the values of God, where it is very clear what God thinks of Israel and the Jewish people, and where it is very clear that there is no room for lies, fabrications that we hear all the time.
I've wondered, going along, following up with your question, Robert, I've wondered if, what seems like the United States hamstringing Israel's response to October 7th, and I could be wrong, but it does seem like the U.S. has kind of hindered them. And I wonder if the length of time of war basically of unrest is why people are starting to lose interest, because there's just a rising anti-war sentiment in this country. And do you think that it's related, or do you think it's specific to Israel?
That's another great question. I do think that that's yet another theory that I really believe in, and that is that we've tried to find this moral equivalence between all sides, when it should be very, very clear that good is good and evil is evil. And people like murdering, raping, mutilating children, women, innocent people is evil. There is no justification for it.
Yeah.
But today we live in a society where we try and be politically correct, and we try to excuse evil or even legitimize it when it is fundamentally wrong. I don't care how a terrorist grew up and whether he was given luxury or poverty as part of his social fabric.
Yeah.
But that will not excuse, not even a tiny bit, his terrorist activities.
Right.
I'm sorry. Evil is evil. It has to be recognized as such and has to be completely eradicated. There is no room for moral equivalence when it comes to evil.
And the moral equivalence, even on October 7th, and Ericka, I actually think there is sort of a fatigue factor, which is, I think, what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Two comments to that. Number one, war is supposed to be ugly for a reason, right? You don't want it, so therefore it should be, it should be executed or conducted as quickly, and you need to define what victory looks like, right? No one wants a protracted war forever. But Rabbi, I want to go back to something that you said, which is just the use of the term evil has been taken out of the vernacular, because you're not supposed to call anything evil, because, as you said, I think you used the word moral equivalence, right? One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? That started in the 60s and the 70s, at least in this country, right? With sensitivity training, or whether it was EST or Life Springs or those kinds of things. But there really is evil in the world, is there not? And if you can't call it evil, how do you expect to fight against it?
Exactly. I think that's very, very, very well said. In order to fight evil, in order to eradicate evil, one must first recognize it. And if we can't recognize it with utmost clarity, then we can't fight it either. And not only can we not fight it, but then it will allow evil to blossom, to develop itself, to almost take over. Children who are being used in order to defend terrorists is evil. Raping women is evil. Murdering innocent people is evil. Kidnapping people is evil. We must call evil evil. Otherwise, we'll, like you so beautifully said, we'll never be able to fight it, and certainly we'll never be able to try and eradicate it.
Yeah, and that goes back to your point about a godless society, right? I'm not saying, you can't know right from wrong, good from evil without knowing God, but it definitely hinders your ability to justify bad behavior. I am very clear with the Lord.
Are you being nice about that, Ericka?
I know. I am very clear when I'm being sinful. It is not a question, and I may be willfully sinning, and that's not a good thing. But it's. I think that has been my thing recently is. I've been talking about, politics and trying to teach people about conservative values and why it matters. But ultimately, if I can just bring them to the Lord, all of those other problems get worked out in over time. And so I just, go ahead.
No, that's a very good point. I will also say that in Judaism, we speak about two types of sins or two types of good deeds. There are sins versus God, me versus God alone. And those are sins that perhaps are less grave than the sins towards others. What we call ben adam l'chavero, the person versus his friend or his neighbor. Those sins are are worse because they bring destruction to humanity, especially if they include the evil that we're speaking about. Look, for me, this is also a very personal issue. I have a beloved son who's 19 years old. He's 20 now. And he's been fighting on the front lines in the IDF since the beginning of the war. He's had friends killed right next to him. And he himself dodged quite a few bullets, not just in Gaza, but also in Lebanon and also in Syria. And when I asked him, just to make this point, when I asked him, if I may be the devil's advocate here, what differentiates you and the terrorists that you're fighting against? After all, you're both fighting for your countries, for your people, and both using maybe even the same rifles. What's the main difference?
Yeah.
And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, first, Abba, as you know, we are using missiles and rifles to defend our children. They are using children to defend their missiles and rifles. That's number one. But number two, it's also in the intention. When I shoot a bullet, my prayer before shooting it is that there should be peace in the world so that I would not have to be killing anybody. When they shoot a bullet, their prayer is, how many people can I please God kill? Let me bring as much destruction as possible. And I think that says it all. That really says it all. And I know that my son is speaking on behalf of all of those IDF soldiers, all of the American soldiers too, that really stand for good and that are fueled by God and by his values, as opposed to the other side, the evil side.
So Rabbi, there is also, first of all, as truthful and as moving as I've ever heard. So thank you for that. But because we have a podcast, because I'm almost speechless, but because with what you just said, it was so powerful. But I want to keep this moving. There is a genocide going on in Syria where they are trying to eliminate all the Christians in Syria. Why doesn't the world care or report on it? And I'm not asking you that you would have the ultimate answer to that. I'm obviously just asking your opinion. But there are certain things that I just have such a difficult time wrapping my head around. You know, we say, right, obviously, no Jews, no news. I mean, obviously, and that's sort of, you know, it's somewhat sarcastic reference that to it, but there's some truth to it. There is a genocide going on in Syria.
Yeah.
And the world by and large doesn't report and or doesn't care. I don't understand.
Yeah, that's the double standard that we see so often. And that's how you know when people are driven by anti-Semitism or not. If they focus solely on the Jew, then you know what their motive is. That's pretty clear to me. And it should be pretty clear to the world too.
No, I understand. You've also been very outspoken and very active in this country. You're in Scottsdale. I know that you recently addressed the Arizona legislature about a bill that they put forward. Right? What was in that bill, and what's the outcome of the bill? Has it been voted on? Because it really has to be state by state. The federal government, you cannot. Well, first of all, legislation will only go so far, but the legislation also has to be state level, because federal level is impossible to enforce, and moving hearts and minds is state by state.
That's right, absolutely. And we've been successful thus far with passing this bill through the Education Committee. And as you know, there are many more steps following this. But the anti-Semitism bill that we are putting forth is a bill that will penalize any display of anti-Semitism in classrooms from K through 12. And hopefully we're adding an amendment through college years also. And what this means that any person, teacher or student or staff member that either speaks anti-Semitism or acts anti-Semitically will be penalized up to the point that a teacher can have his or her license revoked. Students can be expelled from schools. They could also be fines and other types of punishments that are executed against those who who act anti-Semitically. I have to add, I mean, it's a pity that we need a bill to ban these types of behaviors, because it should be common sense and it should be part of our fabric of society, of our morals, of our values. But unfortunately, as this past year, and maybe even more, has shown, we have people that are really standing up for evil, to use that word again, and I'm using it a lot. And I will tell you, I have students. I'm blessed with many, many students. I've been a teacher. Besides being a rabbi, I teach just a few hours a week at the local Jewish day school here. And I'm in touch with many students and many congregants, obviously. And I can tell you that some of them have been attacked, not just verbally, but even physically attacked just for being Jewish. And it pains me to no end.
So I want to play a clip for you, though, because we have a clip when you address the Arizona legislature, and I want to get your take on this. So if you don't mind, it's a quick clip.
Sure.
Ericka, just roll this clip for Rabbi Allouche and obviously our viewers.
A state, make no mistake about it, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Let me clarify. Criticizing Israel isn't anti-Semitism. It's part of the democratic process, and Israel, unlike many of its neighbors, is a democracy. But genocidal chants of free Palestine, river to the sea, any silent or verbal support of terrorist groups and actions, and any attack on Israel's very right to exist are nothing but pure, evil, disgusting, and intolerable anti-Semitism. Because at the very core of these claims lies the inability of people to make space for that which is different. As darkness despises light and as evil hates good, they too cannot stand the existence of the other. And because we are all different, the hate that begins with Jews never ends with Jews. This is why this is not just a fight that Jews must lead. This must become everybody's fight, including yours. I thus encourage you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee,
30
to
seconds.
do everything in your power to eradicate this cancer from our society.
A very powerful speech, but what I wanted to focus on was the woman sitting behind you. And obviously, you know, the faces, the disdain. I mean, it was what a visual, right? To see you make such a powerful and honest, heartfelt speech about, you know, it's sort of, not to put you on that pantheon, but the Martin Luther King Jr.-esque, right? It was that encompassing, and yet there was someone behind you, this woman behind you, and I think the gentleman to her left as well, who were beyond disrespectful. They were. I mean, what was all that? Give us some context, because I watched that in preparation for you coming on as a guest, and I have to tell you, it broke my heart to see that. Not that people aren't entitled to different opinions. I understand that reasonable people can disagree, but that to me goes at the heart of what we've been talking about, which is this war of ideologies of good versus evil.
Right. You know, it's quite ironic, because I was speaking about the dignity of difference, right, and how we ought to respect the differences and different opinions in others. And she was displaying the exact opposite. So it actually helped my cause, and it helped it more than I could have even imagined. I'll tell you as a scoop that a member of the committee came up to me thereafter, and he mentioned that you should know that there was a member of the committee, another member of the committee, who was on the fence, and she didn't exactly know how to vote, whether she should vote for this bill or against this bill. And when she saw the behavior of this woman who was sitting behind me, she said, "Oh, it's quite clear now that I have to vote for this bill, because these people really don't want to respect anyone that's different. They just want to impose their views, their anti-Semitism on others." So it helped my cause. I was quite happy about that. Look, as we know from the media, that you have these protesters that come and disrupt and shout all of these just terrible anti-Semitic slogans, and they sometimes even become violent. But I will tell you, it won't deter us. I think that in many ways it shows their true face, And people recognize that, just like that member of the committee.
Yeah. That actually, interestingly enough, short story, that happened to me several years ago. I would call myself a liberal back then. I was, not super religious or anything like that. And I went to a conference called Politicon, and it was, all politicians and politics and whatever. And I remember watching a debate between Anna Kasparian and Ann Coulter. And, Ann Coulter, oh, she's the worst person on earth. Now, I don't know nowadays, but back then, she's the worst person on earth. And Anna Kasparian's the good guy, right? But the Kasparians fans were such buttholes, and they were so rude. And I was like, look, if this woman is so awful, it will come out in her words and deeds. I don't need you to make a big show. You look like dumb. You look dumb. So that's good. Show your face, like that. Exactly what you said. Just show it. We love it. Let everybody see it.
You mean like take off the mask, like I said in the monologue?
Yes.
Yeah, show you. I mean, if your
Yes.
cause is righteous, then why are you hiding? Show your face.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
I agree. Rabbi, last question. I know your time is limited. One of the other concerns here is obviously what's going on in Israel and what's going on in the Middle East. And I want to say, so there was an article where the Saudi ambassador, one of the aides to the king, basically said that Trump is leading a new world order of peace and cooperation and really reorienting the Middle East. Right. And there obviously was a conversation or a thought process that before October 7th, because the Abraham Accords had really changed the dynamic and the paradigm, that was one of the reasons that Hamas, who is obviously nothing more than an arm of Iran in one form or another, or the Muslim Brotherhood, or both, depending, because obviously Sunni Shia differences. How is Trump perceived in the Middle East? Because here we get so caught up in the Trump derangement syndrome. I know you're over in Israel all the time. I know your son's there. I know you have many relatives there. How is Trump seen from the inside of Israel out?
So look, by and large, and I can tell you from not just what my family members who live in Israel think and my friends think, but I've been to Israel now 11 times since October 7th. So I have quite a good feel of what people in general think. And Trump is certainly perceived as a breath of fresh air. And like someone told me, Trump is the only one that's been sane in many years. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, don't you know Einstein's quote that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing time and time again, expecting different results each time? Well, finally, someone comes and offers different solutions that no one has ever thought of before, or at least never verbalized before. So yes, someone who's sane, who's not insane, like the definition of Einstein. And we hope that sanity will indeed influence the Middle East altogether. And who knows, maybe one day bring about true lasting peace.
And I would argue that the linchpin of that would be a peace treaty between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Mm-hmm. Because that forever changes the paradigm and again, who am I? But certainly in my opinion. Yes. Rabbi, I want to thank you for joining us. For our listeners, where can they find you? Where can they find you on social media? How can they get in touch with you? I know you're not into self-promotion, but that's all we do here is self-promote. So,
well, I wish, first of all, that more and more people like you would promote themselves. It would spread the light in the world. So please do continue to promote yourselves too. But since you asked me, I can be found on Instagram at Rabbi Allouche, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I have a podcast too, Apple Podcast, on Spotify and other places.
And what's the podcast called?
It's called the Rabbi Allouche Podcast.
Oh, well, that's an easy one.
Oh, that's easy.
Yes. And obviously, if any of your listeners ever comes to Scottsdale, to Arizona altogether, you're more than welcome to our congregation to even spend a Shabbat dinner with us and experience the beauty of Judaism too. And I mean it.
I'm going to take you up on that, just so you know. Yeah, I'm definitely taking him. We come to Arizona at least once a year, so
Oh,
we'll
good.
see you this. We'll see you this winter.
Excellent. Excellent. Really, we look forward. I really mean it.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, everybody, if you are watching, thank you for joining us thus far. Stay tuned. We're going to have some fun videos to react to of the news that we've seen this week. So go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel that you're watching on, share this with your friends because obviously, right, they need to know about stuff that matters. So don't be shy. Share it. And let's actually hear from our sponsor, Israel Appreciation Day.
Hello, and thank you for being here. This is the first ever Israel Appreciation Day.
I believe in the words of Israel's first leader, David Ben-Gurion, who said, "One does not write history, one makes history."
The history of the Jewish people is one of rising and flourishing, despite thousands of years of being attacked, exiled, and scapegoated.
And I'm honored to join all of you in celebrating the first annual Israel Appreciation Day. And there are many reasons to appreciate Israel. It's one of America's closest allies in the world. It's a safe haven for persecuted people, and it's a wellspring of innovation.
That the land of Israel was given to the Jewish people, not by the United Nations, but by God himself.
Well, no one wants to fight. I'd love not to have this weapon, to be in a bulletproof vest, to serve in the IDF.
We cannot allow the worst instincts in our society to win. We must stand proud and we must stand tall.
This is the Jewish moment, when the Jewish people stands for life over death and shows the lost and confused West how to survive.
From the Chalutzim, the pioneers, the original and early inhabitants of the land, even before the official creation of the State of Israel in 1948.
In my mind, one does not have to be Jewish to support Israel in their battle against the evil that is Hamas. One only has to be human.
Our Jewish community is stronger than ever.
And Israel's two things. It's not just a place, it's also a people.
We're only a generation away from the Holocaust. And understanding, yes, it could happen again. My daughter came home and said, is there going to be another Holocaust?
I couldn't live with myself if I didn't stand with Israel and the Jewish people at this moment in time when they most need us.
A free press during the Israel-Hamas conflict has provided real-time updates on terror attacks. And if we don't learn from those conflicts and wars, we're doomed to repeat the same mistake.
And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to come out and be a voice of one sometimes. What did you do professionally prior to October 7th?
It is your duty as a Jew to shine the light. Go on to social media.
Why would you flourish under persecution? And the answer is that's our nature. That's always been our nature. When our enemies terrorize us and they come after us, what you see is a direct correlation to innovation.
The nation of Israel lives.
And we're back.
And we are back. Rabbi Allouche is a hard act to follow, is all I can tell you.
I know. I almost feel like what we're about to do is like blasphemous or something. Like,
why? Because it is light and
we're gonna make fun of people.
Well, I'm not gonna make fun of people. I just may be a smart. I mean, look, I'm from New Jersey. My natural instinct, is hey, 1, 2, 3, not for nothing, right? It's like from here to here, you're dead, right? So that's my my inner Jersey. So we're gonna counterbalance the very serious and the very deep conversation with Rabbi Allouche with a little more biting commentary of the insanity of the country and the world right now.
Yeah.
Right.
It is pretty insane right now.
And before we go to the videos, I do want to start with one thing.
Yeah.
So Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Ugh.
Right. Another one who I hope would self-deport.
Come
but that's
on,
different.
bro.
Maybe
do we have to talk about her?
Wait.
Oh, she's awful.
Wait a minute. The House
the worst.
of Representatives had a bill to condemn. Let me make sure I get this straight. Right. voting on cracking down on the Mexican cartels and the tunnel systems. There have been over 140 that they've discovered. The vote in favor of cracking down on the cartels was 402 to 1. The only person in the House of Representatives to vote against cracking down on Mexican cartels and the tunnels that allow illegal immigrants into the country was none other than Rashida Tlaib.
Why?
Which raises the question of, thank you very much. Have you been reading my notes?
I'm sorry. Did I steal your punchline? I'm sorry.
No, well, no, that wasn't the punchline. That was the question. So one has to ask oneself, 402, that means every single Democrat who was there, right?
Yeah.
435 members.
Some
So
people
that
might
means
have
there were like
abstained
20
or
or some odd, there's probably 32.
no-shows.
So the squad was probably not there. So there might have been others, but in that House vote, one vote against cracking down on the Mexican cartels and the tunnel system. You have to ask yourself why.
Yeah. Did she say why?
I want you, of course not. But I want your insight.
Because she's a criminal and she benefits from it. I mean, like, real talk. Like, what is that? Like, why? The only thing I can think now, here's the deal, y'all. I haven't read the bill. So maybe it says something in there wild that I would vote against, but I'm never usually on the same side as Rashida Tlaib. So, I mean, unless you're just being obstinate, just to be obstinate, the only other reason to vote against it would be that you benefit from it somehow.
I think you're getting warmer.
Okay,
the question is, how would she benefit? And
getting bad people in the country?
Ooh, you're getting even warmer, right? There's only one possible reason. Right?
Okay. Tell me.
If you want illegal immigrants to continue to come into this country, then you want to change the demographics of the country. That's what illegal immigration was for, and therefore you want to take down America from within.
Yeah.
Right now, people say, "Oh, you're being extreme." No, that's the logical conclusion of unfettered illegal immigration. And even, by the way, that bill that they say, well, the Republicans during the Biden administration could have had a bill on illegal immigration, right? But they didn't want to sign it.
Yeah, because it was a garbage bill.
Well, that bill would have capped it at 5,000 illegal immigrants a day. Like, you can be kind of pregnant, right? And it's 5,000 illegal immigrants a day, which 5,000 times 365 days. I don't know. That's like 1,000,008 and change.
Yeah, dude. That's why that's why nobody signed it. It didn't actually solve the problem. And then you're like, oh, but it's totally fine if we have we'll let 5,000 of you in a day, but that's it. Okay.
Yeah, but
just get in line.
But not 5,001.
Yeah. And then we give them, how many of them have they figured out? Has Doge figured out? They've given Social Security benefits and disability, food, housing. Oh, good.
I got it. All right. So that's my event name, because 402 to 1 in any event.
Yep.
Your turn.
Yeah. My turn. What? My turn what?
I don't know.
Oh, are we going on to the next part? Is
Yeah,
that me leading this?
You had some things you wanted to show me. You wanted this live reaction. You want live reactions, and I am in a live reaction mood.
Oh, okay. So why don't we start with this one? This one is, since we were just talking about Israel, a big hubbub in the news lately has been this guy Ian Carroll, who went on the Joe Rogan podcast and said that Epstein worked for Israeli intelligence.
Out of all the information that's getting disclosed, supposedly this administration, what do you have the least faith that we're going to come to
Epstein,
a conclusion?
for sure.
Epstein.
And I think it's because of Israel. I think when you really dig into Epstein, his entire network was Israel. It was clearly it was targeting American officials and the American president.
Right.
And the CIA does have interest in those targets too. Elements in the CIA does. Certainly they had help from the CIA, and certainly they had help from these other organized crime and intelligence operations. But I'm looking at, okay, Dan, so if this giant group of Jewish billionaires is running a sex trafficking operation targeting American politicians and business people and stuff, you think they're working with an Arab or Muslim nation in the Middle East? Like, you think that Leslie Wexner is devoting his entire life to philanthropies on behalf of Israel, but then he's going to work for Saudi Arabia when he's doing this trafficking?
So the argument.
Okay. Well, okay. First of all, he doesn't say that the Mossad. He never says. He says Israel. Doesn't say Mossad. But what are you trying to get me to believe that the Israeli government was setting up a sex trafficking ring to ensnare U.S. politicians? Is that what this is?
Well, that's what he's saying. My thought is, so there is a credible connection. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, her dad was in the Mossad. So that is real. That is known. That is something that is out there.
And that has to do with the price of tea in China. How?
I mean, you don't think that the girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, whose father was in the Israeli version of the CIA, you don't think that that's weird?
So you're trying to tell me that all these pedophiles, politicians are pedophiles, and they're being exposed to be controlled by. First of all, who is this guy again?
I don't even know.
I know who Jim Rogan is.
I'm not saying I agree with him by any stretch of the imagination. However, and I'm not saying this was all just like an Israeli job, like Epstein was all Israeli. Obviously, the only way he could operate was with the permission of the United States government, and we know that. So I would think it would be a joint operation.
Back up. Can you give me that again? The only way who's able to operate is with
Epstein. He was criminally charged and let go by the United States government.
Well, that's because there's two tiers of system of justice. I get that part. I mean, you'll get no arguments out of me on that one.
But you cannot operate a system like that. You can't have a worldwide trafficking ring and nobody knows about it. I just don't believe that.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure he has a worldwide trafficking ring. What I know about Epstein is they flew people to the island, right off of St. Thomas, Epstein Island, and they brought in young underage girls, and they brought in politicians, and some did probably, and some didn't. And how is that a worldwide ring? Especially if you're targeting U.S. officials. Look, I'm not defending any of this, right? I think it was wrong. I think Epstein was probably murdered in prison. I have no proof of any of that, but. Okay, so the guy goes on Joe Rogan and says that it's all an Israel operation because Jewish billionaires, right? And by the way, last time I checked, Bill Gates was not a Jewish billionaire. I can give you a list of the other ones that are not Jewish billionaires.
Yeah.
So again, I think my concern with shit like that is they're feeding into the trope, and to those old stereotypes, Jews, money, billionaires, Israel, and look, countries.
So you don't think it's weird that his girlfriend's father was Mossad? You don't think that?
Well, first of all, I've never heard that before. Okay, so I'll take it. I'll take it at face. I will take that at face value, because Ericka, you're never wrong about those things. But
you should tell my husband that.
I did. It didn't go over really well.
Yeah. I think part of the problem, one of the things that worries me is you have all these people coming out saying all this stuff, and we know enough bits and pieces that people, with their tinfoil hats are going to start questioning stuff. And if nobody comes out and says, no, here's why it's wrong, or here's the truth, right? We're still waiting on those Epstein files, Pam Bondi. Okay. So it unfortunately, it gives fuel for people to build more theories, So Pam, my girl, we're waiting on you.
You know what they say about opinions.
Yes, I was going to say something and I stopped myself. Okay.
Well, you can bleep yourself out, but they're like, because everyone has.
They're like,
let's move on. Next topic.
All right. So, another clip that was super fun in the news this week was Charlie Kirk was Gavin Newsom's first guest on his brand new podcast. Can you believe that?
I love that.
I know. Let's watch.
I hope you guys retreat.
You kind of like the
more
advice.
For us.
You like the
there's no opposition. There's no activist spark. You guys are posting these cringe videos on social media.
What are the videos? What are the ones?
I don't know.
This
Like harmonious thing of 22 senators all saying the same thing.
You didn't like that, yeah.
I didn't like it. Go ahead. Go do more of that.
What do you do?
Please.
What do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some
Get
advice.
better ideas, Governor. To President Trump's credit, he also harmonized with the strategy by going on podcasting and using TikTok. He personified what a lot of young people, especially young men, wanted back in their politics, which was an ascendant rebel attitude against these institutions that have failed them so miserably.
Against
Love it,
institutions that have absolutely spot on. Look, I told you we did a poll. I used to do a bunch of extensive polling under Electoral Science Institute back in 16 and 15 when Trump was running, and we found an interesting synergy between Trump supporters and Bernie Sanders supporters. And the synergy was they wanted to burn it down. Right. They wanted to disrupt the system. So I think what Charlie Kirk is saying is absolutely correct. I also think that what he said that, you guys, Democrats need better ideas. I mean, they used to make fun of the Republicans with Handmaid's Tales or whatever that thing was.
Yeah.
Watch those videos again, of all these women, pretending they're boxing or whatever. If that's not Handmaid's Tales, Democrat style, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it is. Here's the thing. Everyone can tell when they're being pandered to. We have entered the panderverse. These Democrats are, what was the one we watched? They were doing like a Smash Brothers, like they were characters in a video game. It was so cringe. You guys are trying too
hard. The word pathetic
hard.
comes to mind.
Yeah, you're trying too hard to be cool, bro. Like if you have to try that hard, you're not cool. Okay?
As opposed to me, right?
You're always cool, Robert.
Because I just exude coolness, right?
Especially when you talk about how you only watch movies with dead people.
I only watch movies with dead people. There you go.
Okay, so let's see.
And by the way, last point, 100% correct. Right now, the Democrat, look, I think they'll regroup, but right now the Democratic Party has a battle for their soul. And the people leading the party, which is the hard left or the squad sort of wing of the party, is morally bankrupt and has no ideas how to connect with the American public. They are lost in the wind.
You know what? Speaking of lost in the wind, I wanted to ask Rabbi Allouche this question, but I wasn't sure if it was inappropriate.
As opposed to Gone with the Wind, right?
Which has a bunch of dead people in it. Yes.
Right. I love that.
What
did you want to ask the rabbi?
What he thought about Donald Trump talking about basically making Judea into a resort. A beachside resort. Like, what he thought about that? What do you think about that, Robert?
First of all, I think it's a great idea. I want to buy beachfront property now. You can get it at a steal. No, look, I think it is. Too soon. Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And the two-state solution has been around for so long, and it's what he said. It's what Rabbi Allouche said, right? Einstein's definition of insanity is repeating the same failed procedure and expecting a different result. So it's an out-of-box thinking. And don't forget, the Egyptians are now come to the table with some of the other Middle East countries with an alternative proposal.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the two-state solution is dead. And whether it's Trump Gaza or Saudi Arabia Gaza, or I had a friend of mine put forth the theory that he thinks it's going to be some sort of international protectorate. But at the end of the day, Hamas is done, right? Hamas is done, and they have to be done because even after they're defeated, and by all intents and purposes, they're already defeated, it will be generational before you, through education, the children that are growing up, have to, grow old and die, of natural causes, hopefully, before you're going to generationally shift that. So it doesn't matter as much what you do in the geography, but you've got to stop the hemorrhaging, which is the hatred, which are the same thing.
Yes. Yep. And Ben sent me Robert Maxwell's Wikipedia, y'all. So forgive me. He was not officially part of the Israeli government. He was actually part of the British government.
Well, that I know. Excuse me. That I know.
Ben? Yeah, I forgot about that part.
But are you guys going to be fighting later? Because he just like told you were.
No, he said something, but he doesn't.
Wrong.
No, he said something, but he knows that I can't hear him with my headphones in, so I don't know why he's being a silly goose face.
What?
Oh, just hold on.
What?
Hold on, I unmuted you, Ben.
It's saying the only things I could find said that he had links to MI6, KGB, and Mossad, but links. It doesn't get the details of that. And it does say that 6 serving and former heads of Israeli intelligence services attended his funeral in Israel, while Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir eulogized him.
Oh,
So what you're basically saying is he knew people there, therefore
Correct.
he's guilt by. So this is guilt by association. Ericka.
I mean, maybe.
Ericka.
I'm just saying his daughter ended up being the girlfriend of a major human trafficking ring.
Okay, that's a far cry from what you were saying before. And look, I'm not justifying it. And maybe it was, and maybe it was. I don't know. I mean, look, they say in 1969 that the U.S. landed on the moon. I wasn't there to see it. I saw it on TV. For all I know, they staged it in the Arizona desert, and we've never been to the moon. I don't know.
This is the thing. See, this is part of the thing. Is like,
do you know what it's?
How do we know? You don't know unless you're. What?
Do you know what it comes from? It comes from faith. At some point, faith is always before the fact, because if it's not before the fact and if it's after the fact, it's not faith, it's hindsight. So at some point, right, if you get more information, but to those allegations, it was KGB. Okay, so he hung around with people in high places, and by the way, was he, let's figure out the nexus between the Mossad, the KGB, MI6, right? So, and back in that day, they were at odds with each other. So maybe he was a double agent, or maybe he was a triple agent.
And here's the thing. Our governments suck, bro. Like, the government sucks. They do stupid things. I'm willing to believe anything.
Really?
Honestly. Pretty much.
I'm 6'2".
Absolutely, dude. The water really is turning the frogs gay, okay? Like, what is it? The difference between the truth and a conspiracy theory is 6 months?
I got it. Let's go on to the next topic.
Or a conspiracy theory? Truth story? Wait, which one? Okay, so hold on. Okay, so this one's about Newsom talking about the transgenders.
Governor Gavin Newsom taking some criticism after his comments about trans athletes in women's sports, making headlines this evening. Take a listen.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness. So it's deeply unfair. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace. That these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well.
Those comments during the newly released first episode of his new podcast as he hosted conservative political commentator Charlie Kirk. Some members of Newsom's party have criticized him for saying it's unfair for trans athletes to compete in women's sports. Critics include Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener, who called Newsom's agreement with Kirk on the issue profoundly disturbing. This all comes as Kirk spoke during an event at CSUN, which brought out both supporters and protesters. Kirk has become a polarizing figure for what many call racist and anti-Semitic comments in the past. He founded the organization Turning Point USA, which has been criticized by both the Anti-Defamation League and the NAACP. He's also garnered strong support from many.
I think if you are criticized by the, what was that? The Justice League.
Wait a minute. Let's go back to this.
All those groups.
Let's go back to this comment. First of all, he was against it before he was for it, right? It's the quintessential sailboard guy, right? He's got to go that way on the wind, and then he goes that way. So all it tells you is the guy's trying to rehab his image, run for president. Excuse me. He doesn't have time to open up the reservoirs in LA County to make sure there's water against the fire, and he can't run the government, but he has time to do a freaking podcast. That's number one. Now, number two, love the fact that Charlie Kirk was on the podcast, but for him to now say that he's against men competing in women's sports is about as nakedly political of a pivot as I have ever seen. And then he's talking about the humility of essentially the oppressed community. Governor, methinks thou dost protest too much. He doesn't give a damn.
He basically.
You want my reaction? That's my reaction.
He basically tried to stand on the fence and be like, oh, well, I understand both sides. And what he ended up doing was making everyone mad. Is
Good.
like, You didn't make anybody happy with that response.
Here is my prediction. Governor Gavin Newsom is Al Gore 2.0. Al Gore, by his own father's admission, was raised, quote unquote, raised to be president. Didn't quite get there. Gavin Newsom, raised in Presidio and all that in San Francisco, was raised to be president. He will never be president, and he will never even be the Democratic nominee in 4 years from now, because there is nothing more pathetic than a politician out of office, which is what is going to be by the time that happens. And the podcast, smart as it is, ain't going to save him.
Nope. All right, y'all. We've got a few more funny clips that we're going to be reacting to. If
aren't you glad you're doing this with me?
If you've been watching this long, we thank you so much. If you've gotten something out of it, go ahead and leave a like. And if you think it sucks, go ahead and leave a downvote, because here's the deal. Yeah. All engagement is engagement. So leave us a comment. Make sure to share it around. All right. Hate watch. We like hate watchers too. We'll take it. Okay, so now we're going to watch the ever so tolerant left talk about voting for Trump.
Well, I'm a woman, and I get a lot out of going to church. I love the people. It's very moving.
I didn't know you went to church.
Oh, yeah. We go every Sunday. Yeah, ever since we moved to Austin.
Is it like a real Texan church? Like with Bible thumpers and...
Well, the people are, more conservative than like LA people or like New York.
Mm-hmm. Is that weird for you?
Why would it be weird?
I don't know. If I was just around a bunch of Texans who voted for Trump, I guess I'd just feel a little alienated.
They're nice people. Really good families.
Cool. But do you ever talk politics with them?
Sometimes.
It doesn't get awkward?
Why would it?
Because. Wait. Are you a Republican?
No. I'm an independent. But Dave is.
An independent? Since when?
I love it, you guys. So, this is a good demonstration.
So this
of what
was
it's
White
like.
Lotus. This was White Lotus, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, are they having this conversation in Thailand? Because I thought White Lotus takes place in Thailand.
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I have no idea what this is. Our Miss Maria, our social media manager, sent it to us. So apparently this is going around.
Because here's what I have to say. If it was in Thailand, Pompu Tai Dai Neat Noi. Never mind.
What just happened?
I wasn't swearing. I wasn't swearing.
Wait, are you?
You're beeping me out. So
you know how to speak. What language do they speak in Thailand?
Thai.
Thai?
It's sort of like what color was George Washington's white horse? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pompu Tai Dai Neat Noi.
That's what you're saying? George Washington?
No, it says I speak a little. It says actually it's I speak a little Thai. I'm not sure I got the dialect right. Oh no, I have all the important things like Hong Nam Yutinai, which means where's the bathroom? Because if you're going to go to Thailand, it's a long way to hold it on the plane. First thing off the plane, right? So can we get back to the Trump thing? Or not?
The Trump thing? Which Trump thing?
Well, the fact that, first of all, the reference to Bible thumpers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You're a Bible thumper.
Because if you believe in Jesus or you're a Christian, you must be a bad person. Don't you know, Robert?
Where does the term Bible thumper come from?
Beating people over the head with a Bible, basically.
I find it hard to believe that that's where Bible thumper comes from, but I'm sure Lord Redic will find that for us. Yeah. But here's the other thing: you didn't vote for Trump, did you? Oh, I'm an independent. And by the way, they obviously don't answer that, but I think that's coming on now, because what I find is that most people now have the balls to speak up and say, "Oh, yes, I did." Whereas 2 years ago, they weren't doing it. And even during the Trump years. All right. The term Bible thumper originates from the practice of some preachers physically thumping or hitting the Bible with their hand while delivering a sermon. So, Ericka, once
Google
again,
says.
you thought they were using it as a cudgel and beating people with the Bible.
People
I'm
did
gonna
that.
thump you. Like I'm going to thump you. Like,
yeah.
Which is a term, right? So did you ever get beat with a Bible? Is that what you're telling me?
No, but I did have family members that are Christians that are the reason why people hate Christians.
So Lord Redic says, beat them with the Bible spiritually. Well, a spiritual beating I'm into.
Not physically beat them, just with the word.
No, not physically beat, but it's spiritual. Look. Some people need a beating either way. So spiritually or physically, which, by the way, when I see all these protests at like Barnard in Columbia, they all need a beating, right? Because they hide behind their little mask. We're going to end this show where we started, right? If you have the courage of your convictions, take off the mask and let's see who you really are. But they don't want to do that because they need not only a spiritual beating, but a physical one. And Ericka, we're done.